You're listening to the Disruptive Franchise Podcast with Stacey, the podcast that celebrates innovation in franchising and peeks behind the curtain of failure, success, and the future of the franchise industry. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Disruptive Franchise Podcast. I am joined today by wonderful guest Mairi from Boogie Beats Music and Movement. Hi, Mairi.
Hello. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming along. Now, Mairi, you were a finalist in the 2025 Disruptive Franchise Awards for Franchisee of the Year. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your franchise, and how you got there.
Absolutely. So I came on board to Boogie Beat Music and Movement from a teaching career. So I was a primary school teacher and I actually became really ill with long COVID. And it became really clear to me after being off for a year that I wasn't able to return to my normal job. And as many of children's activity providers could probably relate to, not having that identity of a teacher was really difficult. And I was searching for something that I could still do what I loved, which is working with children, working with families, but also support my recovery. And so that's how I came into Boogie Beat, because the Edinburgh franchise was just up for sale at the right time for me. And I took on the Edinburgh franchise and I added on 2 other areas nearer to where I live. So I've actually got quite a big franchise patch. In terms of franchising, I think it's slightly different up in Scotland because there's less of a dense amount of people in one area. And that's how I came on board. So that was just at the end of 2022 as we went into 2023. And so this is my 4th year in the franchise.
Amazing. Do you love it?
I do love it. I absolutely love what Boogie Beat represents, bringing joy and imagination to children. I have built my business bigger than most of the Boogie Beat franchisees, and I'm still expanding, and I have no desire to stop. And, you know, like anything with a business, there are elements of it that you don't enjoy, and there are elements that you really do. But luckily, I've built myself to that stage where I can delve some of the things that I really don't enjoy, such as scheduling posts on social media. I like writing them, and I know the value, but actually doing it's not my thing. I would much rather be in nurseries or care homes for extra time, knowing that someone else is doing that job for me. So that was my huge target for 2026, to get that revenue in so I could make that decision. And I'm so excited. I've made it.
Amazing, amazing. That is the goal for a lot of franchisees, isn't it? To just not be doing everything yourself. So your story there, like obviously you got hit with long COVID and I can imagine that was quite a recovery for you. What led you into choosing franchising? I can see how maybe going back to teaching wouldn't quite hit, but obviously taking on a franchise is quite a big step if you've never run a business before. So what led you to franchising?
The thing with franchising is that you get given a ready-made package of how to run a business. I was so aware that for my recovery, I needed to keep doing something that I loved, because that's really important, right? And actually, you probably understand chronic fatigue and all of that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I had to think, what can I do that's going to bring me joy? But I had 2 young children, 4 and 6. I could not start a business from scratch. My brain wasn't, I didn't have the time, the energy. And so the franchise is amazing in that way, because it gives you all the protocols, all the things to pick up and literally run with, that starting a business from scratch just doesn't. And you've got all that support. And, you know, you've interviewed Hannah, our franchisor, before on your podcast. And, you know, she's phenomenal. The support that she gives is just amazing. So it gives you enough scope to build the business that works for you with the support that you need to do it successfully.
That, and we love Hannah as well. Actually, it was a really good episode that we had with her, and if you're listening and you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to that one because it's brilliant. I'd love to ask you, so like Hannah, I was a franchisee myself, and I'd love to ask you, what's it like having a franchisor who has been a franchisee? Because I think that kind of offers a very different perspective in franchising, and one that I found very useful over these. But what's it actually like to have the franchisor that was the franchisee?
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. And I think because she knows exactly what it's like to run that, she knows the pain points. She can relate to you, you know, and she can put things in place. And Hannah actually started Boogie Beat the year before I came on board. So she was quite new to franchising, like being the franchisor. And I came in with, obviously I'm in Scotland, so it's an English franchise. So with some Scottish themed things that I wanted to implement, the curriculum up here is different. And she was so open because she knew that if I didn't relate to my demographic of who I was going to, then I was losing something, because she'd been in her own area and she can see all areas are different. So I think that's made a huge difference. And also she is so motivated to make Boogie Beat better. And she could see, actually, this is where we're falling short and this is what we need to do. And what she's implemented in those 4 years that she's been franchisor is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, And I'm so pleased to be able to support her in that, because I'm a team player.
Love it. I love it. This leads us quite nicely into talking about the Disruptive Franchise Awards. So you were finalist last year for Franchisee of the Year. Tell us about the kind of thing that you put in that application to be nominated, because I think at this point in time, like, it's having judged the awards, having been a franchisee, like the Franchisee of the Year for me is quite an important category because of where I've come from. And I know how much has to go in to make it to finalist. So tell us a little bit about the kind of things that you were doing behind the scenes that kind of got you to that finalist position.
I think it's being a supportive part of the team whilst you're running your own business, offering to write lots of blogs for Boogie Beat as a whole. I do sort of little videos on trainings. I'm always active in the Facebook group going, I tried this out. You could try this, or sharing sort of new ways to write letters or new ways to engage with nurseries. It's about that openness to share. And it's actually really interesting because that's something in teaching that I really hated. I hated how much teachers would create resources and not share them. And I just think that's making more work for everybody. At the end of the day, anybody's success within the business is your success too, because it helps to boost the whole thing. And I think it's that ethos. And also, in terms of Boogie Beat, we're quite a small franchise, really. I think we've got 14 or 15 franchisees. And in 2024, so my second year, I was up for 3 different awards. We were actually going to cross paths at the FSB Awards.
Wow.
And I think, for having been there a year and to have built my business to that extent and to have won the Encouraging Women in Franchising Franchisee of the Year and the FSB, not just the regional, but the whole final, which was amazing. And then also the Boogie Beat Award for the year. I'm just looking because I've got it over here because I had to check. I think that, the sort of marketing that brought Boogie Beat as a whole, that's actually quite a big deal, for a franchisor.
Absolutely. I mean, any national award is big. And I think it's really interesting to look at the awards. As I always say on this podcast, like, for me, marketing, it's all about marketing. So you enter awards because it's good marketing. And it doesn't just help your position as the franchisee, it helps the whole brand as the franchise. And like over the years, like as a Daisy First Aid franchisee, we won some huge awards. And it's then what you go and do with the aftermath of that award, I think that's actually quite important as well. Not just you as the franchisee, but obviously the whole franchise. FSB is a really interesting one. So I won the regional award for startup business. So it was actually for this business rather than my franchise business. And I was all set for Blackpool. That was where the final happened. And there was just a combination of things that meant that I just couldn't be there.
There was a train strike as well,
train strike. I was in Bristol that day delivering a session for a franchise conference. I had to get from London to Bristol up to Blackpool during a train strike, and I nearly tried. And then I remembered that I was human, and actually I was going to probably get stuck in Preston where the train kind of divided, and I was just like, oh. So I was really gutted to miss out. But the FSB Awards are huge. They're a huge national awards.
Although interestingly, I've looked at this year and they've taken Franchise Business of the Year out. I thought that's really interesting.
Maybe they're scared because we've got Disruptive Franchise Awards now.
Well, that's it. Too much competition going on from you, Stacey.
Obviously, I don't know that, but yeah, absolutely. I think it is an interesting one though, as a franchise business to win a non-franchise award. Obviously, the Franchisee of the Year is still a franchise award, but at a business awards rather than at a franchise awards, I think it's quite special to get that recognition. And very early-ish in my franchise journey, I won an award. It was the first ever Franchisee of the Year award at the Family Network Awards, which used to be called something else, but it was again the first year that they were called the Family Network Awards. And so it was the first ever Franchisee of the Year. Felt quite a lot of pressure entering that one, and to come away a winner in a situation where actually the judges weren't necessarily used to looking at what franchise businesses do. I found that really empowering. Yeah, definitely. What is it about awards obviously you've said that you've won quite a few, you've been to quite a few. What is it that you enjoy about being nominated?
I think when you're a business owner, you are so busy, just like running your business. And it's a really good way to stop and reflect on what you've actually done. And that's what I use it for. Some people maybe do that at the start of the year or the end of the financial year, but actually putting down in an awards application, these are the things that I've done and this is the impact. I mean, that means so much to me because it also helps me think, what are my next steps? And just take a minute to go, wow, look at what I've done. And regardless of if you make the finals or you win, that the value is in the process in doing that application. You have nothing to lose.
I completely agree with you. I really do. I think a lot of people are put off by doing their own applications, but I always say actually most people that win awards have nominated themselves. Like it's like this secret that shouldn't be a secret, I think, always. So I'm very transparent about nominate yourself for this award. I think that's super important. Obviously, another thing that's important for us is disruption. How do you kind of approach that disruption? So you said there that you've got a very collaborative view, and I completely understand why from what you said about the teaching industry. But what makes it so important for you to be out there innovating and sharing that with your network, Mairi?
Children are always changing, right? They're always changing, and the environments that they're in are always changing, and what they need from us changes. So, it's our professional duty to be looking at that and to be constantly evaluating and saying, how can we improve? And that's disruption, isn't it? Because we could very easily keep our eyes closed and just keep doing it. In Scotland, they've got a phrase called it's I been. It's I been. It's always been that way. Why change it? Another teaching phrase that I came across a lot that I really didn't like. And it's about being the best that we can be. And you can't be that unless you're disruptive, unless you go, well, why are we doing that? Let's do that better. How can we improve with that? And sometimes people don't like change, people don't like change, but it's essential for progress.
It really is. I like that frame actually of like when you're working with children, the children change all the time as well. So actually to try and deliver things that have always been because they've always been, I find that really frustrating. It's like, well, there must be a better way. There must be a more efficient way to do things, which is always nice. So yeah, I get that. Completely get that. In terms of kind of the future for your business, you said there, like obviously you've made that area bigger and you're one of the bigger franchisees. What's your plan for the future in terms of Boogie Beats?
I am in 2026 really focusing on the intergenerational side. This isn't a business decision because it is not where the money is, but it's definitely where the magic is. And now that I've kind of got that baseline that I need, I want to chase the magic some more. And the intergenerational stuff is you just cannot create it in any other way. I have two different ways I do that. So one is the nursery will come to the care home and we'll do it all together. And the other way is a community class. Parents or grandparents will book on and they'll come with their child. And I run both of them. They're both very successful. And I actually have got 3 more care homes on board this year already. Really keen to push that out into the community because there is so much value in those experiences. That's my big focus.
I really like that. I'm seeing a real industry shift towards kind of what would have once typically just sat within like early years, actually moving to intergenerational. And I don't know a huge amount about it, but what I love is that the refocus of the impact, because you can impact the little ones and you can impact that elderly generation and bring that magic together in what must be such a rewarding way.
Yeah.
Why does
absolutely.
it for you? What is it about that kind of lights you up?
It's seeing the residents' eyes light up, and it's hearing, I've got a couple of really good examples, of going just before Christmas, went into a care home and I took lots of fake snowballs. And as part of the story, we had a snowball fight. And one of the ladies, she stood up and she was going for it with these snowballs. And the carer says she'll refuse to stand up in any other activity. I have never seen her stand up unaided. And she could go for it, proper go for it. And last week I was in a new care home and obviously I didn't know the residents. And one of the staff said to me at the end, she said, "Oh, Jim has never stayed for the entire activity ever." And at the end of it, he said to me, thanks very much for coming. I really enjoyed that. And it's little moments like that that just, fill your heart, and you've made a difference to their day. And the value for the children and all that social learning that they're doing, and the value for the residents, you can't create it in any other way. You have got to have those two separate groups of people coming together to make that magic.
Love that. I'm like grinning from ear to ear. For those of you listening on audio, I'm just grinning because that is magic, isn't it? Like, absolutely. Best
Yes.
impact. Love it. Mairi, if there was anything you could do without fear of failure, what would it be?
I would definitely expand my team more. If I could just expand my team so I know that we could get out to more bits in the community, more intergenerational, more nurseries, more care homes, more community classes, that's what I would do, because I know the value of what we do. I've had the feedback from multiple people, and it's just a case of being able to get out there and have the people in place. And yourself, I've got 3 staff just now, 3 class teachers just now. I had 4, and it's a really, really good job for the right people, but you've got to find those right people, which is tricky.
That was going to lead me into another question, actually, of what is the hardest thing about being a franchisee? It might be that.
No, I think it's just juggling what you need to do and what you have to do. And I'm very honest. I was very open with Hannah from the start. I need to make X amount of money. I need to make that bottom line. Do you know? And that's not negotiable. I had to replace my teacher's wage, and I had to do it really quickly, which is probably why I'm so successful so quickly, because there wasn't a choice for me. But that's the hardest part, is balancing. Like I'd said, intergenerationals, it's where the magic is, but it's not necessarily where the money is. And just always finding that balance, having that team going.
It is really tricky. I do think from my own experience that I get asked questions a lot when I'm interviewing potential franchisees, like, well, can I run it part-time along my job? And the answer is always yes, you can. And then the next question is, okay, how much can I earn from a franchise? And the answer for that generally in lifestyle franchising is, well, it depends, because you get out what you put in, and you have to take the onus on shaping that franchise business to what you want, to make sure that you go and earn the money that you want. For me, when I became a franchisee, I'd left quite a high paid job. And the focus for us was that we didn't, I wanted to spend more time with my little one. So I didn't want to replace the whole of the income necessarily, but we still had bills that were dependent on me paying them. And I still needed, to make X amount of money. And I think, I think back to when I joined franchising, and I made my return on investment back very quickly, but it was because I was so driven in that I have to do this. And I think mindset plays a really big part of, like, if you kind of come in and you're dipping your toe in and you'll see how it goes, you can have results, but it's hard, versus coming in and being right, it doesn't have to be, but all or nothing, I have to make this a success. I just find those are the kind of people that generally in franchising go really far, because there is no option B, there's no secret option C, there's no, well, I'll have to go and get a job. And I think that mentality is what drives the success, but is also very disruptive in itself, right?
At the end of the day, it comes down to you. And some people find that really scary. Especially if you come for a job where you've got a manager or whatever, that's scary. I personally quite like that, because I know at the end of the day, it's me. It comes down to me.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? You thrive or fail on your own input. I think that's very empowering for the right kind of person, and terrifying as well.
Yeah.
But in a good way, if you like positive pressure.
Yeah, I did definitely, especially at the start, I'm much better with my sales conversations, but at the start, it wasn't something I was used to. And I used to be like, okay, put your big girl pants on, and I used to schedule it in. And like, once I've done this, then I can do this. Very much like with my children. When you've made that call, then you can have a cup of tea. Just because that's what I had to do, to structure it, to make sure I did it. Because it'd be so easy to go, it's a bit tough, I don't want to do it, And one of my nurseries, I called every single week for, I think, 9 or 10 weeks. And then I got in. And every time I say, I'll phone you next Tuesday, I'll phone you. And I did. And I followed through. And then I got in. And you know what? I not only got into their nursery, but there are 4 sister nurseries. So I go to all 5 of them. And those are the sorts of things I tell people when they first come in, like, make that call. And if you say you're going to call back, call them back when you said.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of people would have that fear of constantly calling back. But actually,
I did. And every time I was like, put my big girl pants on. Come on, you can do it. But it was worth it in the long, because you've got to be consistent with sales and you've got to follow through on what you said you were going to do. And you're setting that target for yourself, aren't you? As well as the person on the other end of the phone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the expectation. You set the expectation for them, you set the target for you. And what I really like about that as well, Mairi, is that you have to disconnect the feeling from the action. I think we all get so caught up in it doesn't feel nice or I don't feel like it. If you take that out and you just do it, you'll get the results. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that as well. But that is the key to success, particularly as a franchisee. If you wake up and you don't feel like it, you've got to do it anyway. That's how you get past that hurdle, because you may never feel like it. And then what?
So let's face it, we probably won't ever feel like making that sales call, because it's not a natural thing to want to do for most people. And it's the same with applying for an award, right? It's a big step. You have to set yourself that expectation to do that, because otherwise there'll always be something else that's more pressing, unless it's an hour before the deadline. How many entries do you get within that last 2-hour window?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. I don't know, obviously, what we're entries are open at the moment as we record this. So I don't know what's happened this 2026 yet. But for 2025, we were open for, I think, 10 weeks. And the majority of entries came in the last 2 weeks. And I don't know what percentage came in the last 2 hours, but it was high.
But it was high, yeah. Yeah, the deadline dancers as such.
Absolutely. Partly because I think you can really, if I'm saying enter the awards now and there's no real pressing urgency for them, you do it tomorrow. Like, you're busy, you put it off. But I think that people do need that positive pressure sometimes to actually pull the finger out and get it done. So I'll laugh again this year when the same thing happens. But fun. But, the year that I was franchisee of the year, I got my entry in 30 minutes before the deadline. I was a proper deadline dancer.
Did you?
I'm any tighter than when it happened. So, because I wasn't going to enter. And then I, changed the course of history.
I think when I entered for last year, for 2025, I think I was your first entry. Do you remember? Because it tried to charge me £1 million.
Yeah, that hasn't happened this year, thankfully. We've got the tech. It's fine. Yeah, no, you're quite right. Yeah, you are. Yeah, there you go.
Not first this time. It's on my list.
We need you in there. Yeah, amazing. Mairi, how can people get in touch with you if they're listening and they're like, I need to speak to her?
If you just Google Boogie Beat Edinburgh, all my details will come up on my contact page on the Boogie Beat website. I also have a very active Instagram and Facebook page as well. Boogie Beat Edinburgh is where to go.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. I've loved chatting with you, and hopefully we'll see you at the 2026 awards.
Thank you so much, Stacey.
Pleasure. Guys, we'll see you next week. Before we finish up today, I'd love to just thank our podcast sponsors, Book When and Make Your Mark Podcast Agency, without whom this episode wouldn't have been possible. You can find more information on both amazing companies in the show notes. If you've enjoyed listening to today's episode, please also make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and I would absolutely love it if you left a review too. See you next time.